Good morning or good evening, sixth graders. Today we'll be discussing two kinds of wisdom as discussed in James chapter 3, verses 13 through 18. So our objective for today is to be able to compare and contrast the two kinds of wisdom as explained in James chapter 3, verses 13 through 18. Now, before we begin, on a piece of paper, I would like you to answer the following questions. So, who is wise and understanding among you? So, who from your life do you view as being wise and understanding? It could be one person, it could be more than one person. Someone you know, maybe someone you don't know. And then, how do they show it in their actions? So how do they display wisdom and understanding through their actions? So go ahead and pause this video and answer those questions. Alrighty guys, so my example, when I think of wisdom and someone being understanding, I think of my grandpa. So my grandpa, he not only knew a lot about science and math and building and engineering, but he also worked hard to provide those around him. And he worked hard even if it was an inconvenience to him. So he really lived to serve and to love others. He was an engineer and an architect, which is where I got my love of math and science from. But he never held his education and his knowledge above anybody else, meaning that he was still humble about it. And he also gave biblical advice. So when I went to him to ask for advice, he gave me sound biblical advice and pointed me back to Jesus. Now that to me really defines wisdom, that a person realizes that they are not above everybody else, that they constantly look to Jesus and bring others with them to gaze at Jesus. Now, another example, which is the ultimate example, is Jesus. Jesus led by example. He showed us what wisdom and understanding is. He showed mercy to the poor. He was impartial. He loved the Pharisees, the poor, the oppressed, the rich. He loved them all the same. He didn't love the rich a little bit more. He loved everyone the exact same. He created everything, yet he still lived humbly. He lived to serve others and to show them God's love. He was the creator of the universe. So if he himself needed to be humble or was humble, then we need to be humble by all means. So our focus will be on verses 16 and 17. Let's read verse 16 aloud together. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you have disorder and evil practice. That comes from James chapter 3, verse 16. So before we move on, go ahead and grab a blank piece of paper. And on that blank piece of paper, we're going to do what I'm calling a pause and draw. So on this blank sheet of paper, I would like you to illustrate what verse 16 would look like if everyone in the world put it into action. So take a moment, close your eyes, and just imagine what would the world look like if everybody adopted this sort of mentality and attitude and this type of wisdom that's described in verse 16. And then you're going to pause this video and you're going to draw it on a piece of paper. Alright, so now that your illustration is complete, let's go ahead and sort of dissect and take apart verse 16. So verse 16 really details what our world looks like. Our world is very egocentric, meaning that each person is focused on themselves and how they can benefit themselves rather than others. So our world is very sinful and is very based on me. What can I gain from this? In this verse, James makes it clear that this Me, and put it in quotes, me mentality allows jealousy and self-ambition to exist. With this type of wisdom, which is worldly wisdom, jealousy and being self-seeking are okay. Now, already, hopefully, you're realizing this is very contrary to what God says and to what God advises us to do in the Bible. But like I said, verse 16 is the world's perspective of what wisdom really is. However, the results of this type of wisdom are disorder and every evil practice. This wisdom, quote unquote, leads to sin and to death. James contrasts this with verse 17, which says, "But the wisdom from above is first of all pure. It is also peace-loving, gentle at all times, and willing to yield to others." So we're going to do another pause and draw. So on the back of your previous masterpiece, I want you to illustrate what this verse would look like if everyone in the world put it into action. So close your eyes and imagine once again, what would verse 17 look like if everyone in the world was to put this into action? Go ahead and do that now. So this verse focuses on the wisdom that is from above. It's God's wisdom. So God's wisdom is pure. It is sinless and faultless. It is peaceful and gentle, just like these two baby goats or kids cuddling. God's wisdom is reasonable, full of mercy, produces the fruits of the Spirit, and lastly, it is impartial and sincere. These two types of wisdom are complete opposites, right? One cannot exist while the other does. So here, friends, we're faced with a choice. Jesus is challenging us to make the conscious decision and choose Him every single day. We too can gain the wisdom described in verse 17 by being with Jesus each day, reading His Word and talking to Him through prayer. So before I leave you, just a few reminders. The first thing is to complete your James 3 notes. So by the end of this lesson, once you complete the notes for this lesson, you should have chapters 1 through 3 complete. If not, make sure that you go ahead and do that today. That way you can just keep going forward and not have to worry about backtracking. It's just another thing off your checklist, which always feels good. The second thing is your sacrifice video write-up. I know the majority of you have started that, and I'm so proud of you guys for taking initiative. Some of you started really early on that, and that's fantastic. If you haven't started yet, it is due tonight at 8 p.m. on Google Classroom. So make sure that you go ahead and get that posted and turned in by 8 p.m. There's a post on Google Classroom with some simple directions on how to do it, and that's also where you'll submit it. And then the last thing is prayer requests. If you have a prayer request or a praise report that you would like lifted up to God on your behalf, I would love to do that. I would love to pray for you, praise God with you. So go ahead and comment and let me know. A lot of you have done that already, and honestly, that makes my day. I love getting those emails and those comments. So keep them coming. I am working on generating a list. So if you would like your prayer request to remain just between you, me, and Jesus, please make sure that you go ahead and say, hey, I just want this to be private, and that's completely where it'll stay. However, if you're okay with me sharing it, I am working on a list just to share with every student in 6th grade. That way we can be praying for each other and lifting each other up. So if you would love to be added to that list, go ahead and just comment or email me and let me know. So don't forget about your James notes and your sacrifice video write-up. And then on Monday, we'll be doing an activity with our verse cards. So until next time, I love you guys, miss you guys. Talk to you soon.